Previously on the TONMO Octopodcast.
We will talk. You and I will try to do this again in the last week of August, as we discussed. We'll try to get a news episode out, Cephalopod news for the month of August, because we did one for
There's got to be
July.
some breaking news.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. Just really quick before we break, the San Antonio aquarium. There was an octopus in there, and a woman with her 6-year-old. They didn't have the lid on the display because there's usually staff around. But the 6-year-old reached his arm into this tank, and the octopus took hold of the 6-year-old boy, pulled him into the tank. Staff came around eventually, got entangled themselves. Thankfully, the boy was able to break free, but has all the suction cup hickeys up and down his arm. The mother took to TikTok. Went viral, and then went, the rounds of interviews. The story just continues to unfold. So let's check on where that story's at when we get back together in August. That was a big one. Aaron, how are you?
Tony, hi.
Good to see you.
Good.
Great.
Good to see you as well.
Yes. Here we are at the end of August. As promised, we're getting together to review the news that was for the month of August. And we discussed leading with this story about the woman who visited the San Antonio aquarium. The son was engaging with the octopus at the tank, and it wrapped its tentacles around the boy's arm, as octopuses will do, and left a bunch of hickeys, basically, is the upshot. But it was a horrifying incident, as quoted by Taryn, and she went to TikTok with it. It went viral, and a lot of news media got involved, as well as organizations like PETA and others. But for the aquarium's point of view, they basically said, the staff at the time, Taryn was looking for staff while this was going on, and the staff eventually came over and helped dislodge the octopus from the boy's arm while also getting entangled with the octopus itself. This is all pretty common stuff. If you're interacting with an octopus, it's pretty tricky stuff. And so definitely tough to leave an octopus tank on display, accessible to the public without any staff around. So that's kind of the genesis of the issue here, it would seem. And the aquarium's point of view at the time was like, hey, listen, this is a super playful creature. Octopuses are, and that's true. It's they are. It's not like because an octopus is wrapping its arms around you, it doesn't mean that its full intention is to attack and tear into you, if you will. That's not necessarily the objective, as far as we know. We've seen a lot of human interaction where they're just feeling things out and exploring and identifying, and it's usually fairly innocuous, notwithstanding some hickeys along the way. But all of this publicity had the mother conducting various interviews, talking about her concern for the safety of obviously her son, but also of anybody else in the public going to see this aquarium, and also expressing concern for the health of the octopus itself. Because, of course, if there's no staff around and people are messing around with an octopus, that is not a good thing for the octopus. So that's kind of where it's at. It's kind of, the story is, 15 minutes of fame kind of wound down on this story. Other news cycles crept, Cracker Barrel changed their logo. So, there's no room for the octopus boy. We do I kind of have this complicated set of thoughts when it comes to zoos and aquariums, but I think they're very important for society. Ultimately, they help us to understand these creatures better, and so I think they play an extremely important role in educating the public and giving the public an experience to understand our world better. That can only be a good thing, both for us, but also for the creatures that we care about. And the danger in it, of course, is if it's not done well, it can be pretty horrifying, not just in terms of like an attack, but also just the welfare of the animal if it's not done with extreme care for the animals on display, it can kind of easily turn into something that's is a troubling negative. I'll put it that way. Anyway, that's my overall thought on this story without getting too much into the specific incident. What's your take?
It's strange that there is an kind of an open touch octopus encounter in an aquarium because, historically there are stories of aquariums having challenges with octopuses getting out of sealed tanks, let alone open tanks.
Right.
And the enclosure for this octopus looks like kind of a tide pool touch tank. It doesn't look like it has a lid on it normally. They've put some fabric along the top edge of the partition between the public and the octopus. I'm assuming to discourage it from crawling over the glass. But I don't know how much of a hindrance that would actually be if it was really determined to get out. So I find it interesting that this aquarium has put this octopus in this particular enclosure. I don't see any issues with having a supervised encounter with octopuses. If an aquarium wants to do that, I think it would provide enrichment for the creature as well, because as you've said, octopuses are very inquisitive. And I know that we had some members on the forums actually comment that many years ago, this octopus was in a different tank, and it was kind of a behind the scenes encounter that you could go back and meet the octopus at the back of the tank. And I've done that myself at a different aquarium, and it was a great encounter. And I got hickeys on my arm too, and I went, "Oh, I'm never washing my arm again." I did, don't worry. But it's a really interesting way to engage with these animals. And I got to say, watching the video, kudos to this 6-year-old boy, because he remained calm throughout this entire experience. And that's great for one of our, young cephalopod enthusiasts to at least, keep breathing and not be panicking, because that would have just made the situation even worse. But I think that the aquarium, there is some onus on the aquarium here that their staff should have been present. If you have an animal encounter and it's just open to the public all the time, you need to have a staff member there to make sure that nothing is going wrong for the creature, but also for the public as well. Yeah. But it's a complex issue. I know that the mother has made statements that she wanted to see changes made and that the animal be taken off display. And I think that using the word attack in this instance has really put a negative light onto the octopus itself. It's kind of the Jaws theory. It's the, all sharks are bad. This octopus attacked the boy. The octopus clung on to the boy, but that's what they do. They're inquisitive. That's how they play. And I did see there are photos of him having done this previously. If he has done this previously with this particular octopus, there are studies that show that octopuses have a fairly decent memory. And I kind of wonder if the octopus remembered the boy and went, "Oh, this one has come back to play with me again. This is going to be so much fun." And maybe it was just because this octopus was a bit familiar with this person already. We don't know. We don't know what the octopus was thinking. But the word attack, just from watching the TikTok video, it seems a bit strong here. It was being playful.
Yeah, to your point, it could have been very traumatic. Total meltdown. And forever a fear of octopuses, and that doesn't seem to be the case. And
good job, Leo. I hope that you continue to love octopuses.
Exactly. So there. I guess there were some complaints filed and statements made, but I don't think anything has come of that. I was looking.
I do hope that the aquarium has put a permanent staff member there. That was the biggest thing that the aquarium should have taken away, was that they need to make sure that this particular encounter is always supervised.
I would be shocked if there wasn't a serious review of protocols after, what was it, Good Morning America, or it was everywhere, this story. So that was the event of the year, I'm sure, for that aquarium, in a negative way. So yes, I'm sure that some steps have been taken there. And I was trying to get an update. I'll see if any come through. But in the meantime, Aaron, what's the next story we should cover?
Okay, so there was some. Last time we kind of chatted about news, the big news was some very important footage caught of a very little colossal squid. And there is some more footage, not of a colossal squid this time, but another large Antarctic squid. And it is a species of Gonadus, which is a hooked squid. So this was what we believe to be the first ever footage of this particular animal in the Antarctic Ocean. And that's always exciting for squid scientists. So they estimated that this one was about 3 feet, a meter long, but they weren't able to get any other information about it, like sex or age or anything like that. But a meter long squid, that's still a decently large squid.
Yeah.
And it's great to be able to capture these animals in their natural environment, and that's kind of sentiments that Kat Bolstad, who we seem to mention every single podcast. Hi, Kat. But she was interviewed for this, and was very excited about the sighting of this gonadid squid.
Yeah. I'm honest. I get so confused. This happens a lot where Octobot will bring news to me and I see a story and I'm like, now a lot of times publications will recycle a story that's not fresh, but they'll present it as if it is. Like there are times where I'd get excited about nude Magna Pinna sighting, and it's posted as if it's news. And then I see, oh no, they're just rolling out an article from a sighting back in September 2024 without any new information about it. They're just rehashing something, and it's not. I'm not saying NOAA or Schmidt Ocean does that. I'm saying some web news
the news sites do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that can be frustrating and confusing. And so when I saw rare deep sea squid spotted in Antarctica, and the colossal squid story was such a big story, I was confused at first. I'm like, I'm not going to publish this because it's just going to confuse everybody like I'm confused right now. But then when I took a closer look and I saw that Dr. Kat Bolstad was interviewed, which, as you note, was also very much part of the presentation of the colossal finding. I was confused, but I saw it was a different species. That's why I sent it to you. I'm saying this is a new story, Aaron, worthy of publication. So this species, tell me a little bit more about it again. It's part of a totally different, so the colossal squid, Masonicotuthis, is a cranchid.
It's a cranchid, yeah.
From Cranchidae family.
Yeah.
so far so good here. And then what is it, Gonadidae? The squid is from Gonadidae?
Yeah, Gonadidae would be a different family of squid. And so they kept referring to it as the Antarctic gonate squid. And they never actually use its scientific name at all. Gonadus antarcticus. There we go. Now we've got a species name. Cool. So it's part of the Gonadidae family. The gonadids are their signature trait is the hooks along all of their arms and tentacles. I think the one that we see most frequently is, I believe it's called Gonadus onyx.
Mhm.
I think it's the
Mhm.
one from the Monterey Bay Canyon. And there's lots of footage of it like brooding its egg masses in its arms. It holds on to the egg mass. So this is from that family. Exciting to see another one of the hook squids.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that we have two large hook squids that live in the same area.
Yeah, Antarctica is definitely an interesting place with a lot of mystery baked into it, by all accounts. That is super cool. And yeah, I was thinking about Gonadus onyx, if I'm saying that correct, about how they carry their eggs around, and maybe this one does too. There are hundreds of species of squid, so it's obviously it's hard to keep track of them, if you will. But that's why we discuss them, and that's why we have to sort it out. So that's a good one. I'm glad we called this one out for August news because that's actually remarkable. Now, what?
Now,
this,
I will say, to your earlier point about the Antarctic squid media, the way that they've done this article kind of ties into our next article as well. Because in the same article, they then mention the footage of the colossal squid. And then the article itself goes into all about the colossal squid. So, whoever wrote this was definitely looking for the clicks and looking for people who were looking for a large Antarctic squid, but maybe not the Gonadus one.
Yeah. Or maybe they were as confused as I was and maybe went off course assembling the story.
Now, since we're talking about the colossal squid,
yeah,
I did want to mention another very important article that popped up in the month of August. And that is that it was the colossal squid's 100th birthday.
Yeah. Yes. The Papa Museum, of course, celebrating that. So it's 100 years ago. They named it the Sonocoteuthis
Hamiltoni.
Hamiltoni. How did that come about? Do we know? Like, was that a specimen that was kind of washed up or something from? Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure, and this is really testing my memory, because I did know this at one point in time. I'm pretty sure that the original discovery of colossal squid was from a whale stomach. I think that it was a partially digested specimen, and I don't think that it was a whole specimen either. I think that the first discovery of it was actually kind of the arm crown and beak,
Right.
and that was how scientists figured out that it was a new thing. It was because all of the hooks on the arms, and they had those parts of it. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a whole specimen.
Yeah, that makes sense. I will. I'll put on the screen. It would be good for me to research before I do the podcast. But when I edit, I'll clean up in aisle 6 and I'll put some of the stories.
We're learning as we go.
So that's what review of the news is for. All right, so let's go. So let's go from incredible species of hard to find squid back to humans interacting with cephalopods in inadvisable ways. So this next story is about a TikToker who the name of the article is 60 million views at what cost? Man puts octopus on his head for TikTok video. Then he ends up in the hospital. So
I shouldn't laugh.
No, we shouldn't laugh, but we can because he's okay.
Good.
Yes. You shouldn't put octopuses on your head. Although one of our TONMO staff members, Richard Ross, has a very famous picture of himself in the ocean with the octopus on his head. It's an interesting look because you have the tentacles coming. It's like a wig. It's like an octopus wig.
Yep.
So it's kind of primed for that. I mean, I can see how people would be attracted to. I can see how people would get that idea, right? You're in the ocean, you come upon an octopus. Wonder how this would look if I put it on my head.
I mean, personally, don't think that I've ever had that thought, but sure, I guess somebody would.
Right. I can see how. I've never.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So So from the article, some species can deliver venomous bites. Even the friendliest encounter can stress them out. And that's why, like, when I don't scuba, I don't have a scuba license. But even snorkeling, I'm very much a look, don't touch type explorer. I think most people are, but not everyone for sure. And when you go out on a boat, if you snorkel or do that with others, a lot of people, they'll just stand with their flippers right on top of coral, and they'll pick things out and look at it. Feel, I want to touch that. It really probably best just for your eyes. But anyway, TikTok user Emika, who has 3 million followers, so that's a good starting place. You'd think that you wouldn't.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you had, 20 followers, maybe putting an octopus on your head would be maybe not such a bad idea, because maybe then you could grow your viewership, perhaps. But if you already have 3 million followers, and so you put an octopus, so he went viral with a clip showing him casually lip syncing to a song while wearing an octopus on his head. He captioned it Aquaman, and the video has racked up over 75.6 million views. That was at the time of this article back on August 12th. So I bet it's over 100 million. A couple of weeks later, however, he shared a very different scene, himself lying in a hospital bed. And he said, this is why you don't put an octopus on your head in contaminated water. So he's blaming the contaminated water, which may indeed be part of the problem here. 60 million views at what cost, he said. So he basically says the ink, or like the substance from the octopus, got in my eye, he explains, pointing to swelling on his eyelid. I don't know if you guys can see, but my eye is inflating right here. And this is why you don't put an octopus on your head. So I actually thought maybe he got his scalp bit by the beak, but no, it's just the slime that got in his eye, which is not very surprising. It's just really not a great idea to take, an animal like that and put it anywhere near all of your orifices that you have on your head.
Well, and I have questions. So when I first saw the headline, my first thought was, is this in Australia? Did this guy find a blue ring octopus and put it on his head? And then I saw that it wasn't. I was like, okay, so he's not on death's doorstep. So that's good. But how did you acquire this octopus? That's my question. Like, if this octopus is willingly letting it put you on its head, it's probably a dead octopus. And I don't know about you, but whenever I'm at the seashore and I see a dead animal, I don't particularly want to touch it, let alone put it on my head.
Yeah, that could be why. That could be one of the problems, was that it was dead. It doesn't look very healthy now that you mention it. It was looking a little grayish.
Yeah, and if it's just kind of lying there loose and floppy, I'm going to guess that it was probably a dead animal, and that just seems like a bad idea to me. But in regards to what he said about the ink or octopus stuff getting in his eye, the mucus and the ink that cephalopods produce is home to a community of microorganisms, and it's its own little microbiome. So yeah, there's lots of other things living in what marine creatures secrete. So getting that in your eye, I can absolutely see how that would cause an infection, because that is not something that the human body is used to dealing with.
Okay, so we are aligned there. That's a bad idea. Don't do it.
Don't put an octopus on your head. We're learning a lot today. Don't let 6-year-olds reach their arm into octopus enclosures unattended. Mm-hmm. Don't put octopuses on your head.
Yeah, and don't assume that every squid seen in Antarctica is Masonic toothus.
Colossal squid, yeah.
It's definitely not the case. On to the next story. Aaron, what else do we have today?
Well, we've learned that not all Antarctic squid are going to be a colossal squid. But there was an article that popped out that went over a prehistoric creature that we thought was squid-like, not being a squid at all. Now, this is kind of a tenuous link to cephalopods, as we're now not talking about a squid. But it was an article about the nectocaridids, which scientists have often thought resembled a squid. The fossilized versions of them have a slightly oblong, rounded body, and then there appeared to be kind of two prominent, what they thought were tentacles, sticking out the front of the animal. So many scientists have kind of assumed that this was one of the early precursors to some of our modern cephalopods. But there's been some more recent research done on these fossils, including some new fossils that were collected from around Greenland in the Sirius Passet. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but there's recent expeditions to uncover fossils in Greenland. Greenland is nice and easy to pronounce. And they think that this animal is now more closely related to or a prehistoric version of what we would call arrowworms. So still an invertebrate, but not a cephalopod.
I guess one of its distinguishing characteristics is that it has a, I guess, camera-like eye lens, which maybe contributed to the thought that it was a cephalopod, because modern day arrowworms don't have that feature. But it is all kind of in relation to this theme of August news, which is that it's really hard to pin down octopuses in many ways. Like, if we can't pin down like cephalopods in general, you can't pin them into an aquarium tank because they'll come out. But also, it's just very hard to understand what is a cephalopod, especially when you go through the fossil history, for sure, because they're soft-bodied creatures, very hard to get any quality fossil records. There are a few where we've seen an ink sac, for example, in a prehistoric squid, which is kind of cool. But for the most part, there are like so many ammonite shells. Like, you can go, especially like in Yorkshire and England coasts, there's just ammonite shells everywhere, ammonite fossils. And so we know that they were highly populous millions and millions and hundreds of millions of years ago. But we know so little. We probably should have a fossil dedicated podcast at some point, Aaron. And maybe we could bring on one of our fossil experts. That would be very cool to do.
I think a fossil expert would be a great idea for that.
Yeah, we'll be stumbling through quite a bit, I imagine, without that.
And I think, the fact that you were mentioning kind of the camera-like eye that this ancient animal had, well, we kind of see that in the Nautilus. I believe that its eye is a more simplified version than the other cephalopods.
Right.
And so I guess cephalopods could look at that and go, well, nautiloids would have been around back then, and they have kind of a similar eye, so maybe this is like a nautiloid. So, I mean, I can kind of see the train of thought that would have led to this. But, it's really interesting that we're still able to make these new discoveries about animals that haven't existed for millions of years.
Yeah.
So that's really cool that science is kind of advancing our knowledge of these extinct creatures, and that we're able to say, well, no, we thought that this was a squid, but no, it's nothing like that. It's more like this worm.
Yeah, and we talked about fossil. I guess maybe it was the July news, or maybe we did a news episode before that. I can't recall, but we were talking about the leveraging modern technology to kind of peel the layers out of a sheet of rock to kind of reconstruct or to have a deeper understanding about the contents, whereas traditional archaeology is about, what is it? I might not even be using this right terminology, but you take a hammer and you're kind of cracking away the brittle rock that surrounds a fossil to try to get at, okay, this is what it is, but you can't actually see what's inside it or get a lot more surgical about its contents because you'll destroy it. But with emerging technologies, we're able to see a lot more. So I expect more enlightenment to be happening about cephalopods of the past in the next 5 or 10 years, which is another good reason for us to get a fossil expert to join these conversations.
Yeah, hopefully more exciting news like this in the future.
Yes, agreed. Okay, so that does it for the month of August, I think. I mean, there's a lot more news, and if you're a TONMO, even if you're not a TONMO member, but you just go to tonmo.com and you click on that little robot icon, it's actually a content category, and there are a couple of different forums there, but because there are new papers, articles, and published research that are added to this area as well in a separate forum. This is for scientific papers that may or may not have been peer reviewed, but they've been published on ResearchGate and some of these other websites. And so there's been a bunch of publications that have come out in the month of August. But yeah, when we talk about cephalopod news for the month of August, I mean, we touched on 4 or 5 maybe tops, but there are a lot more stories that we could be talking about. There's a whole octopus farm controversy that's happening. I think it's in Portugal or Spain. I mean, these farms are popping up everywhere, and there's a lot of litigation that's happening around that. And laws, lawmakers are looking at the ethics of it, and so there are a number of stories about both sides of that story. Aaron, here's another story we can talk about. When we ended our last podcast where you shared your awesome bioluminescence article, thank you for that, by the way. Very well received. But when we broke from that conversation, you said, oh man, we could have also talked about this new trailer that dropped. There's a new movie coming out. And we agreed that, let's just talk about it in our Cephalopod News of August episode. There's a new movie coming out. It's called Kraken. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
It's a horror. It's like a horror / disaster type film.
Yeah, it's a creature feature.
A creature feature. Very good. And it's like of the ilk of Godzilla or King Kong, maybe not Sharknado, because
that's on a tier all by itself.
Yeah, when you say tier, it's really here. It's on a
tier. Yeah.
No, this one looks pretty good. So I'm interested in seeing it. I wonder, is it going straight to video, or as we used to say, or
days, who knows? It might appear on a streaming service. It's one of those ones where once it gets released, you'll find out where it is. Right, but it's apparently set in the Norwegian fjords, and just like we were chatting about with the Spanish fisheries and that all being set up, it's about fisheries and what happens when you start to impact the environment and ecological changes that occur. And then there's some little hints about a giant beastie that doesn't like the changes that are occurring. So
yeah, we can see where that's going to go. Well, that will definitely be entertaining and worthy of a watch for any fan of TONMO. Please do give it a watch. We'll give it a movie review. Maybe we'll have a dedicated Octopodcast after we watch the movie, and we can Spoiler
Yeah, I think we
alerts.
should. You can talk about how good the movie was, and I will talk about all of the anatomical inaccuracies that happened during the movie.
It sounds good. We'll pick it apart that way. That sounds good. And if we don't like it, we won't make it through. But I have a feeling that it will be entertaining. But we'll see. Yes, it's always fun to watch anything that is like a cephalopod culture and entertainment piece to see the artist interpretation of a cephalopod.
Yeah, of course.
For entertainment value or for whatever purpose. It's always fun. So we'll watch that. We'll review it when it comes out. Cool. Go to that area of TONMO, and you can follow along. You can always watch a forum and get email updates whenever Octobot posts news, which is at least once a day, typically. Maybe a day or two can get skipped if I'm on vacation, because I vet and review every post that Octobot proposes as a news story. And if it's worthy, then I give it a category tag like behavior and cognition, or culture and entertainment, or fossils and history, aquariums, museums, and labs. There's like 16 different prefixes that I use for each news story, and I give it a prefix and I post it.
Yeah, those tags are really helpful to find stuff that you're interested in.
Yeah, if you click on them actually from the forum, then you'll see, like, if you're like, I just want to see culture and entertainment, you just find one of those stories, you click on that chiclet, that kind of colored prefix, and it will only show you news. It will basically filter based on that prefix. So tons of news available for you cephalopod news fans. Aaron and I will continue to do this every month. We may even do some pre-research sometime one of these months, so that we know what we're talking about. Aaron, what's happening for you? What's good for you coming up in September?
Well, I'm very happy to say September. I'm going on vacation, which is going to be great. So we might be able to get one early news cycle in September, but aside from that, I'm going to be out on the high seas myself. And then I'm headed to the Cephalopod International Advisory Council Symposium in Japan.
Excellent.
And I'm going to be, Tony, your roving reporter, and get some information about kayak, and hopefully share some good experiences there.
That is so awesome. I can't wait to see what you come back with in terms of your experiences. Very envious of your upcoming experiences. That's super cool. Really happy for you. It's in Japan. What a great trip to make. And it's every 3 years, right? So it
is. Yeah, every 3 years.
It's a really incredible event that I've never been to, but I've seen the highlights, and I know the agenda is extremely robust, and it attracts all of the world experts. So maybe one time I do make the effort and go. I would like to do that very much. But really appreciate you going as a TONMO ambassador, which is awesome. But I know you have many interests that are bringing you to that event, which is super cool. And I know you have many friends and colleagues, current and former, that you'll be able to catch up with. And I'm sure.
And probably some TONMO members.
Yeah. Awesome. Very awesome. I'm sure that will be the case. So have a great time, and we'll see you on the other side. But let's try to squeeze in one more news story review before you go. Let's wrap it up here, Aaron. Great. Thanks for your time, and we'll do it again next month.
I'll see you later, Tony.
All right. Thanks, Aaron.